Yes. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Um, okay. I came up with a slightly shorter title for the actual presentation. So Google Tag Manager, API Solutions, Managing the Manager. That's what we're going to go over today. Hopefully everybody's had a good day so far, and we'll be able to get through this time a good time. I just want to note right at the start as well. Everything said and presented here is like my personal opinion. I'm here in a personal capacity. I am not speaking for or representing Google in any way. So just take note of that. I am not representing Google, so I might work there, but this is a personal thing. So cool. A bit about me. I'm a customer solutions engineer at Google. And what we're going to go over today is some of the tools I've open sourced in my time at Google. Those are related to Google Tag Manager. I typically work on Google Analytics type stuff. So even though the tools themselves are related to Google Tag Manager, you'll see a distinct Google Analytics focus. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub. Those are kind of where I'm at. As was said at the beginning, if you have any feedback, feel free to submit the form. I don't collect emails or anything like that, so it's totally anonymous form. Also, feel free, you'll need to join Google groups in order to get access to these template sheets, and you can report bugs and submit feedback and stuff in those Google groups as well as submitting feedback in the and GitHub. So a fun fact, and this will be relevant throughout the presentation, I dress up my dogs, Lucy and Lois, in increasingly elaborate Halloween costumes. And, you know, I know that this is the end of the day, and a lot of you have kind of sat through a lot of presentations so far today, so I'm going to maybe include some of that to help make this a little bit more interesting. Okay, so the agenda, why, first I'm just going to go over why does this matter, then we're going to go through some of the tools. So the GA4 GTM Migration Tool I worked on, and the idea behind that is that it'll stream tedious workflows like migrating tags and creating a record of the actions taken in a spreadsheet format. Then I have GA4 GTM Utilities, which the idea behind that is to help automate bulk tasks and potentially help with auditing as well. I've got some feedback around that. People like to use it for auditing. And then if we have time, this isn't technically like a GTM API solution or tool, but it does use like the APIs related to custom tags in server-side Google Tag Manager. And I wanted to kind of touch on that if we have time, just to describe some of the interesting things that you can do with those APIs and custom tags in server-side Google Tag Manager. So without further ado, why does this matter? Why are we even talking about this stuff? Well, I'm sure many of you have noticed that GTM implementations tend to grow in size and complexity over time. As measurement needs in organizations and even products, as we've seen with Universal Analytics and GA4 change, Google Tag Manager implementations tend to change and grow as well. I've seen this time and time again. A person might leave an organization, they might come into an organization, then different people kind of shuffle around, and Google Tag Manager implementations, they just grow organically. More tags are often added, and this is completely normal. But the outcome is that it often makes managing and maintaining Tag Manager more difficult, especially if you have multiple containers. And maybe you start with Google Tag Manager in year one, and it's like this pinata costume for Lucy. It's very simple, just some tissue paper and a hat. And then in Google Tag Manager year 5, you have something that's way more complex. You have a bunch more tags. You have multiple containers. You have custom HTML in there and everything. And it's more like Lucy in this hot dog costume or hot dog cart costume. And it's basically, Google Tag Manager, like the costume, is being held together by tape and pure force of will. So what I'm hoping these tools and will provide is the tools themselves will give you some options to kind of streamline and make things easier, but also it'll help inspire you to perhaps build your own tools or put in investment in your organization to build things to help streamline your purposes. So, rather than doggedly jumping through hoops and making repeated changes in the UI over and over again, that can be very error prone and very, very time consuming. The GTM API, it enables folks to more easily complete many different tasks much more efficiently. So, you don't have to be jumping through hoops on the left. You can be sitting, relaxing, and just kind of enjoying the day while using the API to get through a bunch of work. So some examples, not all of this is what I'm going to go over today, but you can standardize tags and triggers and variables. You could create your own audit system using the API. I've always been interested in potentially creating an alert system or something like that uses the API to let you know when things change unexpectedly, and much more. So it's a flexible tool, and I'm hoping that these tools I'll go through quickly today will help you kind of understand what we can do with the existing things, as well as, like I said, inspire you to potentially look into this yourself. So without further ado, the GA4 GTM Migration Tool. What does this do? It helps you quickly build a bridge from Universal Analytics to GA4 for your tags in Google Tag Manager. It uses Sheets as its interface. And why did I decide to use Google Sheets? Well, one, it's fairly straightforward and easy to kind of build this with AppScript. And two, everybody is already in Sheets all the time anyway, whether that's Excel or Google Sheets or what have you. So everybody's kind of familiar with Google Sheets or a spreadsheet format, and just kind of building a tool on top of that and into that helps make everybody more easily come to the tool. So it lets you migrate your Universal Analytics tags to GA4 tags without using the Universal Analytics interface. And the idea is that it basically creates an exact replica of your, you're creating a mapping, but basically the triggers and everything are automatically migrated without you having to click around a bunch. So we'll go into a quick demo, and I'll just kind of quickly show how the tool is used. So the first time that you use these tools, by the way, you'll want to go to the GitHub, join the Google group. Joining the Google group is critical. That'll be what gives you access to the template. Create a copy of the template and then run one of these scripts, and they'll ask you for authorization first. The authorization is necessary in order for it to use your credentials to access Google Analytics, or I'm sorry, Google Tag Manager. It'll tell you it's an unverified. It'll probably tell you that it's an unverified script and whatnot, and be very, very concerning looking. Feel free to just kind of click around that and go to advanced and finalize the authorization. This script isn't collecting anything in terms of your usage or anything like that. Funny, somewhat ironically, I don't actually have any analytics on your usage of these tools once you create your own copies. So there's no data collection that's happening. Okay, so first, we need to list the workspace, and the way we do that is by going to GTM Migration, and then we're going to kind of check the box here. Then the containers. And why am I doing it this way? Well, if I were to list out all of the containers and workspaces and accounts that I have access to, if I have access to a lot, it's going to take a while. The API is not the fastest API in the world. So it's better to kind of list out the particular things that you need, as opposed to, and at least in my experience, it's better to list out the particular things you need, as opposed to making a request to just kind of list out all of the workspaces that you might have access to. So now I've selected my particular workspace, and the first step is going to be to create the configuration variables. This is compatible with the new versions of the variables and the tags and stuff that exist in Google Tag Manager. So we're going to create a configuration variable, then an event settings variable, and then a Google tag, and then finally migrate those Universal Analytics tags to event tags. So for the configuration variable, first I'm going to refresh my variable and trigger dropdown. That's going to take a minute to complete. But what that does is it lets me kind of use my variables in the dropdowns as well as the triggers in these dropdowns over here. So the script will finish, you won't really see anything, but if we go to the validation settings, you can see now you have a list of all of the variables as well as all of the triggers that I have. So, okay, so first we are going to list the settings variable. This does kind of assume that you have a settings variable that exists. Okay. We're going to say, I'm going to migrate this settings variable. We're going to do, config variable, just a generic name for now. And then for the settings to migrate, what this is going to do is pull in the Universal Analytics settings variable and say, okay, this is going on here. These are like the settings that exist within the variable, the fields to set, and any custom dimensions and metrics and anything like that. So, we're going to migrate just a few of these. Yeah, I'll call this one, I don't know, language. We'll basically copy this stuff over. Allow anchor true. Oh, good. We're just going to migrate these ones. Custom task, doesn't exist for GA4. So we're not going to migrate these. These are more like event settings. So we're just not going to migrate those either. And yeah, we're going to create a configuration variable. And, the live demo, hopefully it'll all go smoothly. All right. Perfect. And if we go to the change log, perfect. Okay, cool. We should see the new variable. I can go click on that and it'll take me to the variable. And we have the variable settings. Perfect, great. All right, now we just go on to the event settings and it's basically the same process. We list the Universal Analytics variable. I'm assuming that we're kind of breaking the Universal Analytics settings variable into pieces, into like a config side and an event side, since that seemed the most logical. But I'm open to feedback if other people have other ways that they would recommend doing this, then that is great too. And I'd be definitely open to that feedback. So we do this, we list the settings variable. It'll once again basically do the same thing that it did before, but it's also going to pull in the settings from the Universal Analytics tags that I have set up. So it's both pulling from the settings variable as well as from the tags. So I'm going to basically copy, let's just do like 4 of these for now, just for the sake of time. We're going to call these parameters. We're going to paste them into here. And then I'm just going to give this one post count total, category, and then author. And we're going to migrate those ones only. Cool. So event settings, list settings to, I'm sorry, cancel that. I think create event settings variable. All right. And the script will think and think. All right, perfect. Well, we go to the changelog, and the changelog will, I think I deleted that on accident. Well, the changelog will kind of have a record of everything that exists that you do in the tool. So yeah, I guess I accidentally deleted that, but it will go ahead and create that. So the next step that we need to do is we need to create the Google tag, right? That our tags will be using. So the first step here, I'm going to list my variables and triggers again. So this will refresh my list so that I can use the configuration and the event settings variables in the dropdown here. And then once that is done, I will go ahead and list my, well, I'll first need to enter in this information. So we'll go ahead and do that. So Google tag, we're just going to say, Google tag 1, measurement ID. I have a measurement ID, 1 second. And then from the dropdown, now that we've refreshed that, these new variables are available. I'm just going to use the initialization all pages trigger. And that way I don't have to set like new set triggers or set exceptions. You would just, if you wanted to have like multiple triggers or something, you would create like a comma list, comma delimited list, but otherwise you can like select specific triggers. And then we're going to do create. The next step is going to be to list the settings to migrate. And this will once again basically have the option to kind of put these settings directly into the Google tag if I wanted to, as opposed to be part of the event settings variable. So I don't know, let's maybe have this one, we'll have it be a config parameter, and then We'll just call it, and we'll have it be the, and then we do create Google tag from the dropdown. It'll run, and then in the changelog, cool, we once again should have a fully functioning Google tag. Great, and we have the configuration variable, any parameters, the event settings variable. Great, perfect. Okay, well, the next part is really kind of the part that saves the most time. So we go, and what we're going to do is create our event tags based on our existing Universal Analytics tags. So if you have a ton of tags across a bunch of properties, or, I'm sorry, a ton of tags within your container, this is what's going to be most helpful. So first, I'm going to list my tags to migrate. And I only have 4 here for the purposes of kind of demonstration, but I'm going to copy the measurement ID so that this is all here. And you could also have the measurement ID be a variable, of course. We're going to call this, home page, GA4, page view, GA4. I guess I didn't set the page view to be false, so I'll actually not do this one. And then scroll GA4. So the GA4 event name, again, you can just I'll just call this homepage, click, navigation, click, and scroll. All right, we're not sending any e-commerce data. We'll, set the event settings to this just for the fun of it, just to demonstrate it. Check the boxes here for all the ones that you want to migrate. Perfect. And then once again, you can list out any settings from those particular tags that you're migrating. They'll show up here. And if there was anything that wasn't caught earlier, you have the opportunity now to kind of map those as well and say, okay, for the tag that's going to be based off of Universal Analytics tag ID 32, that one should also have these other settings, or scroll tag should have this or that. So what's going to end up happening now is that I will go ahead and click. I'm not going to migrate any of that stuff. All that was kind of captured, let's say, in the settings variables I liked. So we're going to create the event tags. Hopefully the demo should work out well for us. And what it's doing now is it's looking at the universal tags, kind of removing the Universal Analytics parts of those and adding in the GA4 parts, but keeping the triggers and the advanced settings for the tag. So if I go in here, we can see, okay, it has the proper measurement ID, the event name, the settings variables, and so on, and it has my triggers. Perfect. So all of these triggers, all of these tags now exist, and I can publish my tag. Or typically there might be some more nuances, maybe with your triggers or something that you'll want to edit within here once you have the tags created. But this helps get you kind of most of the way there, hopefully. And that's basically it for the demo of the migration tool. I'm going to real quickly go through the next tool. So the migration tool helps you migrate. The utilities tool helps you maintain and hopefully manage Google Tag Manager over time. Again, specifically for GA4, but you could perhaps broaden this to any other tag type if you're so interested. And so what does the utilities tool do? It helps you save time with your tags. It can list out all of your GA4 event tags. It can list out all of the parameters that exist across your event tags and stuff that are not part of the settings variables. I'll probably have to add a few manually now, but to demonstrate. But it helps you get all of that information in there, and then you can kind of again kind of manage all of that through a spreadsheet without having to go into the UI and perhaps you wanted to make a ton of different changes to a naming convention or something. You can do that through a spreadsheet as opposed to doing that through the UI and having to click around. And it saves you time, like Back to the Future. You were saving the timeline or something with a DeLorean. Okay, so if we go to, once again, I'm just going to copy this stuff from my other spreadsheet here to save time. But, typically you would kind of do the selection part just exactly the same as you would in the other one. Okay, and then I check the box there. And I am going to actually go back into Tag Manager, go into one of these, and kind of add some parameters, test, world, hello, today. Save that there just to kind of give you a sense of what's going to show up here. So as you saw, I just added some parameters to my tags that are outside of the settings variable. So if you had migrated or created GA4 tags in the past, you probably have a lot of stuff in the event tags, which is normal. That's kind of how you had to do it. What this tool can do is list out your existing parameters and user properties across your event tags without you having to go into the UI and kind of see all of those individually. Running the script should be going. Might take a minute. Like I said, yes, the API is not the fastest thing in the world, but it works. So if I wanted to, edit these, like I could delete them, I can delete these. I could create new ones if I really wanted to. Perhaps I wanted, instead of this being, today, hello, world test, I can have this be, good day, and copy this stuff here. The stuff that's in yellow is the stuff that's critical to making it work. And then making it parameter, and I can go to GTM Utilities, Parameters, and User Properties, and modify parameters and user properties, and that will go through, loop through the stuff that I have here. It'll skip the scroll event because I'm not doing anything to that, and just look at the navigation event and kind of make the changes. If you want to update something, you have to first delete a parameter and then recreate it. But if you want to just delete it, you can remove it there. And cool, great. If we kind of hide that for now, you can see, oh, I guess I accidentally, I didn't, yes, I copied the wrong ID. So it did create something in the scroll event. It was actually here for the, because it bases it based off of the ID. It actually creates something in the scroll event. So, but it will give you an exact list of everything that you're doing. It'll tell you what parameters you're removing, creating, where it's doing that, and so on and so forth. So I can actually go and click on, here, and you will see, great. Well, maybe well, maybe there's a bug there. Pearls of a live demo, I suppose. So those should have been removed. I'll double check that and probably update that today. But in general, what this should do is kind of remove those tags. So in general, then the next step is that you can list out all of your GA4 event tags, and it will allow you to kind of see all of those event tags in GTM or in the spreadsheets. It'll kind of think for a bit. Running out of time. But yes, it'll go through all of this. It'll take its time. Perfect. Okay. So it'll give you the workspace, tell you where all these events exist, and then more or less give you the settings that you can then modify at will for all of your GA4 event tags. You can change the event name, you can delete them, you can update them, you can create new ones if you so choose, you can change the settings for whether or not they're fired before or after different tags. Consent status, the triggers, you can create a list of triggers if you have more than one trigger for a given tag. You would just have a comma separating each trigger name. Same thing with blocking or exception triggers. You can create and then update and delete, and it'll kind of highlight the rows when you have all the necessary values in order to make the proper change. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to show exactly deleting or creating or something like that. But the idea is it lists out the settings. You can change pretty much any of the settings in here or any of the settings kind of after row D or column D. So basically E onwards you can change, and it will, as well as C. So you can't change the tag ID. But anything else you can kind of change and update it at will. So this could be super useful for doing things like updating naming conventions, changing tag event names, making minor changes, or making bulk changes. This does specifically go or only work for a single workspace at a time, but you could easily expand this to apply to multiple workspaces if you're so interested. And then the last thing I'm going to demonstrate is the variable usage. What this does is it goes through and lists all of the variables in a workspace. And it's not GA focused like the other ones. It goes through any variable. And it will try to see if the variables are being used for in any tags, any triggers, any other variables. And it'll tell you, where that's happening. So if you have like unused variables, if you want to know kind of where the variable is being used in some place and it's quickly, you would just want a quick reference for it. This is should be a good tool for you to use to kind of get to that point. And you can also, so like this one's used in quite a few different spaces. Same thing with, or I guess that's the only one. And then if I wanted to, I could like delete it. So, and that would be a process of using variable usage delete, and it would delete the variable for me. I think we might have just enough time to go through the last bit here, which is the GA4 to BigQuery Custom Tag. This one, again, it's not technically a GTM API. It does use like the server-side GTM tagging API, so that's why I'm sneaking it in here. But I want to use have this as like a demonstration, an example of like some of the interesting things that you can do with server-side Google Tag Manager, especially if you're using custom tags. I may suggest that you look around at the community gallery to see if there's anything that there's probably others that do this exact thing and are maybe more maintained or something. And definitely test this out, especially with consent and things before you use this particular tag. But the idea behind this is that it captures incoming GA4 events and then parses those events and immediately sends the information to BigQuery, essentially bypassing Google Analytics altogether and allowing you to see the information in theory much more quickly within the GA4 within BigQuery as opposed to the streaming export. This should only really be used if you can't use the streaming export for some reason. Otherwise, I would strongly recommend that you just use the normal exports for Google Analytics. And the way I'm tying this into the dog picture is that you're sending events to new destinations, much like sending a dog or having a dog that is a mailbox. So if we go to my tag manager, I'm just going to go to my tags and unpause a particular tag here. And then we should be able to go into my measurement, my website here. We have some more costumes. Great, cool, perfect. We're going to refresh the page. We have Lois as the Statue of Liberty right here. She does not like getting dressed up. And then if we go into BigQuery, I think this should be all reset up. You would have to kind of go through the previous steps that I kind of skipped over here for the sake of time of going through and creating the BigQuery table and importing the tag. All of that's explained very thoroughly in the GitHub as well. But if we go into preview, I think we should be able to see. Well, perhaps it takes just a little bit more time. But you can see the test here that I had. It kind of shows up very quickly in the UI shortly after the tags go live. But that's the idea, is that it captures the tags, the incoming GA4 event tags, and will essentially show the information. So today is the 7th. Okay, I believe this is, yes, this is the recent time. Yeah, so yeah, I believe that that's the current time. And yeah, you can see various information about the tags. I'm not sending very much information with these tags, but you can see like the client ID, the screen resolution, all that fun stuff shows up with these tags. And yeah, there you go. So that is, my presentation. For the most part, I do have some extra resources. Here you have Lucy set up as an extra piece of gum. GTM tools from CMO, just fantastic. I like those. Those are kind of an inspiration for many of the tools you saw here. GTM Cleaner from MeasureMind, it helps you clean up your entire container. GTM Database, I haven't tried this myself directly, but it downloads all of your data, all of your settings for Google Tag Manager into a set of, I believe, a set of BigQuery tables that you can then kind of query on your own. So I thought it was quite interesting. And then another one that one of my colleagues made, server-side Google Tag Manager event data clean or filter. It tries to redact PII information based off of regular expressions. So take a look at that. See, hopefully those are good inspirations, and you can kind of maybe use those as building blocks for your own Google Tag Manager API lessons and journey, and hopefully you're able to use those to make the API or make your container run healthy and run well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Ben. We've used your auditing tool. It's been quite handy for bulk updating custom definitions, custom metrics, or kind of copying them from GA3 over to GA4. Because and also the mark conversions is also like a massive time saver. I guess one kind of thing that and I know that we're not meant to send sort of feature requests, but one sort of thought. I mean, some of the tools you've mentioned, I wasn't aware of for instance, that server-side GTM filter one, etc. It would be great if there was a kind of like a public library of like plugins and tools. And even like a way of users adding like comments or stars for those, just because it's sometimes difficult to like know what is good, and also for users to find these resources if they're sort of hidden away either in the partner portal or not kind of in the interface sort of thing. I know you don't have any stats in on people using the Google Sheet. Is there any way to know how many people have like copied it or
I don't know how many people have copied it. I know that I do have like information on how many people have joined the Google groups and stuff. So from there, like maybe like 1,000 or 2,000 people between both of between those tools and the ones I showed, as well as the Google Analytics ones that I have, kind of upper bound, maybe like 2,000 people have joined those groups. So that's kind of like the best metric that I have in terms of usage. And then I have like your typical GitHub kind of metrics too. But besides that, I don't have much information. I don't want to collect any data because that's like a whole set of consent requests that I would need to.
Yeah, because we had a similar sort of issue. So we created a template in the GTM community library, posted on Git, and we don't know how many people have downloaded it. There's no way of us knowing if it's being used or by how much. the reason for the question is more, it'd be great to promote the tool more and know that that more people are using it. However, if people fill in the feedback form, so I know it's linked to on your GitHub pages, at the end of those pages, if you search the word feedback on GitHub, and then if you get a spike in feedback requests, you'll know hopefully then usage has increased. Is there any because we were possibly thinking about building something on the consent API, which is part of sort of a GTM. Are there any and also with the updates to consent mode v2, I wondered if anyone has, like for instance, used your tools to kind of almost turn them into like a consent monitor in Google Sheets or similar.
That's a great question. If they have, I haven't gotten that feedback. I could see how somebody could potentially use it as maybe like a building block to get to what you're talking about, but I haven't actually heard of anybody doing that that they've at least told me about. So if you have, feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to maybe like build in some of that stuff into the tool proper. But
I definitely think there's a need for it to like auto refresh. So for instance, we sometimes run like Screaming Frog like crawls on a website where it's like searching through like data layer values or variables, and it just outputs to a Google Sheet every day or every end of every week. It'd be quite cool to have like a live like Google Sheet list. So that would be pretty neat. I don't think we've got any. There's any other questions in there yet, but I was going to post also some questions in your Google groups and also provide suggestions within there. Just looking on chat. Okay. I'm going to jump to closing remarks. Thanks so much, Ben, for doing this talk and for showing these kind of best practice kind of use cases. I think it's really helpful for kind of people to see like the inner workings of these tools, because like they can look at the code that's running behind the Google Sheet, and it's sort of easier to sort of figure out or build a version or sort of fork something when you see it actually running. So that's awesome. I'm just gonna grab here. So and in terms of the feedback link, so I think I've just posted into chat the speakers form. So that's for access to your a copy of your slides. So there's obviously no recording for Ben's talk, but the slides are available in PDF, and there's some links in the slides to some of the resources that Ben mentioned. I'm going to share screen. So yeah, thank you again, Ben. And it would be great. A very long time ago, there was the head of GTM or project manager GTM was Lucas Bergstrom, and there was a meeting actually in the Netherlands where a bunch of GTM experts all met up with the GTM team. So it's great that there's a chance to at least kind of engage and find out more about what's kind of happening and provide feedback and improve the tool and improve usage. So especially on the API side, the bulk usage, because I think it's kind of underutilized. People like, it's only the very advanced users that are actually like really like sort of pushing it to the max. But very, very useful for massive organizations, and a kind of a sort of hidden gem there really for the right kind of organization.